No one expected this Filipino to sound exactly like Elvis. Until Simon Cowell hit the golden buzzer. The lights of America's Got Talent beamed across the stage as a nervous young man from the Philippines stepped forward. His name was Rico Santos, a 27-year-old factory worker who had spent his life in the narrow alleys of Quezon City, singing to the hum of electric fans and the buzz of street vendors. His clothes were simple, his shoes worn, and his accent thick. When he introduced himself, the audience was polite but uncertain. After all, he wasn't flashy, didn't have a story about fame or wealth, just a quiet dream in his eyes. When Simon Cowell asked, "So, Rico, what will you be singing today?" he took a deep breath, smiled shyly, and said, "A song by Elvis Presley, sir. Can't help falling in love." The crowd chuckled softly. Another Elvis impersonator, they thought. Another contestant trying to sound like the king. Even Simon tilted his head with mild skepticism. But when Rico opened his mouth, everything stopped. The first note that left his lips was velvet smooth and hauntingly familiar. His voice wasn't just good, it was Elvis reincarnated. Every note carried warmth, soul, and sincerity. The way he curled his words, the way he paused, the way he smiled between verses, it wasn't imitation, it was resurrection. The audience gasped. One woman clutched her chest. Even Howie Mandel leaned forward, whispering, "He sounds exactly like him." Rico sang as if he had lived through every heartbreak Elvis had ever crooned about. But behind that golden tone was a story no one could see, the story of a son who had lost his father young, a man who sang to keep his mother's memory alive, and a dreamer who sang at night to drown out the noise of hunger. Back home in the Philippines, Rico's life had been hard. His mother sold fruits on the roadside, his father had once been a security guard who loved Elvis more than anything. When Rico was just 9, his father would sit by their small transistor radio, singing, "Love Me Tender," in broken English, and little Rico would mimic him. It became their bond, a sacred ritual between father and son. But when his father passed away suddenly, Rico stopped singing for a long time. Until one day, he found his father's old Elvis cassette under his pillow with a note that read, "Never stop singing, my boy. Someday, the world will hear you." That note became his reason to keep going. When he reached the final verse on the AGT stage, you could hear a pin drop. Even Simon's famously cold expression softened. Rico's voice cracked slightly as he whispered the last line, "Take my hand, take my whole life too." His eyes glistened. In that moment, it wasn't just Elvis's song, it was Rico's soul poured out in every word. The entire theater erupted in applause. The audience stood, clapping and cheering as Rico bowed, tears streaming down his face. Simon Cowell leaned forward, visibly emotional. "Rico," he said slowly, "I've been doing this show for years, and I've heard hundreds of Elvis tributes. But what you just did, wasn't imitation. It was love. Pure, honest love." Rico's lips trembled. "I sang it for my father, sir. He taught me that music can heal, even when life breaks you." That one sentence silenced the room again. Then, without a word, Simon pressed the golden buzzer. The golden confetti burst into the air like blessings raining down. Rico fell to his knees, crying into his hands. The judges rushed to hug him. The crowd chanted his name. For the first time in his life, a poor boy from the streets of Manila wasn't invisible, he was a star. But what made the moment truly unforgettable came after the show. When Rico walked backstage, an elderly man approached him, wearing a janitor's uniform. He was one of the stage cleaners, tears rolling down his cheeks. "Son," he said softly, "I moved here from Cebu 30 years ago. Haven't heard anyone sing like that since I left home. Thank you for reminding me of who I am." Rico hugged him without hesitation. "Salamat pa," he whispered. "Music brings us home, doesn't it?" That small, unseen act of kindness, the embrace between two Filipinos far from home, was what people remembered most. It wasn't about fame or imitation anymore. It was about connection, legacy, and love. The video of Rico's performance went viral overnight. Millions watched, cried, and shared his story. News outlets called him the Filipino Elvis. But Rico never called himself that. When asked in interviews, he'd smile humbly and say, "I'm just a son singing for his father." Months later, when he stood on the AGT finale stage, he didn't care if he won. He looked up, whispered, "Thank you, Papa," and sang once more, not for the judges, not for the fame, but for the love that never dies. When the lights dimmed and the last note faded, everyone in that arena knew they had witnessed something more than a performance. They had witnessed a miracle born from humility, heartbreak, and hope. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary voices come from the most ordinary hearts. And that night, the world didn't just hear Elvis again, it heard the echo of a son keeping a father's promise alive.